Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with Kevin's Considerations. That's what I'm going to title these shorter videos where I'm just kind of sitting here with my Bible sharing a couple thoughts with you guys. I'm looking here at James chapter 1 and verse 19, where James says, "Know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." I want to stop there and I want to key in on especially this portion of the verse here. Be quick to hear and slow to speak. A discussion of anger would be properly addressed in a whole nother video, so we won't get into that right now. But this, I think, is a piece of advice that would be hugely beneficial to many, many people, especially myself, because I'm guilty, just like everyone else, of not being very quick to hear. Instead, I'm slow to hear and quick to speak, okay? And so probably many others struggle with that. And if you're wondering about that, even try to start noticing when you're watching, watching discussions online or on the news or watching other human interactions. Notice what people will do is, and you can see it in their eyes. They say whatever it is they have to say, and when the other party gets an opportunity to respond, they immediately disengage and start thinking of whatever they're going to say next, and they're really just waiting their turn to speak again. All right. I read after one person who said that most conversations are really not dialogues, but competing monologues. And I thought that was a pretty good way of describing one of the real weaknesses that we have. So here's the interesting thing about this. This is something that we can all do better at, okay? This is something that you can improve fairly easily and fairly effectively without a huge amount of effort, okay? So let's think about how we might do a better job of being quick to hear and slow to speak. All right, the first thing that I'm going to suggest you do is that when someone else is talking, you prepare to restate their position back to them. So you listen carefully, trying to understand exactly what they're saying. And before you weigh in with whatever you want to say about that, you share with them what you understood from what they've said so far. All right, that's going to be hugely beneficial, not only because one, you could have completely misunderstood them, but two, it forces you to slow down and be a little more thoughtful about what you're saying. All right, so restate the person's position back to them. All right, number two, when you go into a conversation, this is kind of part of attitude, but when you go into a conversation, don't assume that you know it all and you're just going to teach this person whatever it is they need to know about this. Perhaps they've got something to offer you that's worth listening to and going to be helpful to you. Number three, sometimes all a person really needs from you is to have you listen, okay? If you remember in the book of Job, when his friends show up at the beginning of the book, for a long time, they just sit there and listen to Job. And as long as they didn't open their mouths, they did fine. Okay, it wasn't until they started talking that things got really bad. And often that can be the same situation for us. And by the way, while we're thinking about this, do you realize that a great deal of what people need from you when they're coming with a problem, or even when you're just having a conversation, what people really need is to feel listened to. When you let a person know that you care enough about them to listen to what they have to say, that does a whole lot for their mindset, for their well-being. It does a whole lot for your relationship with that person because they think of you now as someone who takes an interest, as someone who cares, as someone who doesn't cut them off or go on with their own selfish agendas. And those are all hugely beneficial things, and they're the kind of characteristics you want to develop anyway. So sometimes you don't even need to answer when you're talking with, or when you're, listening to someone, especially if it's about a problem that they're having. Often they don't really need you to weigh in with what you think they should do about that. They just needed you to listen. All right. Now, let me give you one tip that you can do that will help you a whole lot in this. And I'm going to use this little cue card. This is something I actually use in real life. Especially if I'm going to an event, if I'm teaching a class, If I'm having a Bible study with someone, I've generally got a pad of notepaper there. If I'm having some kind of real deep discussion with someone, again, same thing. I'll have a pad of notepaper there. But these, can fit just about anywhere. You could even fold this in half and put it in your wallet. What's helpful about this is when someone's telling you something, you can write it down. How many times have you had a conversation with someone where they shared some piece of information with you, a book, a website, something like that? Or even worse, when someone is having a real discussion with you where maybe you disagree, and you essentially just assume their position and disagree with the position that you have assumed they're holding rather than what they've actually said. All right, by writing down what that individual is saying to you, number one, you make sure that you are accurately understanding what they've said. Number two, you show them the respect of getting it right. Number three, you force yourself to slow down. You force yourself to process that information. And while you're writing, that does give you an opportunity to think about, how am I going to respond to this person? And getting into that habit of thinking about how I'm going to respond, I think is really, really crucial. As a preacher, I have to be very careful what I say. Often things that another person could get away with saying and it wouldn't be a big deal. If I said it, somebody is going to get upset. And so I try to think through what I'm saying when I'm standing at the front in the pulpit, when I'm teaching a class. And I'm sure sometimes this gets a little awkward, but someone will say something to me and I'll just stand there and think for a minute. Don't deny yourself that opportunity to think carefully and measure your words before sharing them. So there you go, guys. Be slow to speak. Be quick to hear. And if you'll take James's advice here, even in non-religious settings, it will be greatly beneficial to you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.